I'm trying to be smarter today just in case my internet glitches on me. I'm going to give it a break from my work and head out on my bicycle. And that way, while I'm out enjoying the weather, then our story can be uploading to YouTube. So it's not exactly nighttime right now, but I'm committing myself to going outside after I'm done recording your story for tonight. So I also cannot get access to Women in Science. Binks is taking a very solid nap on top of it right now. And I tried to get it earlier and he scratched me. So I'm going to let him have his nap with the Women in Science, and I will catch up with that later once he's up. Felix is also asleep in the sunshine and like the one little square on the floor where there's sun. So they don't even care that I'm screaming right now. Yesterday in Desperaux, or this morning, I guess all the time is running together for us. Remember that Desperaux was getting taken off to the dungeons, and his mother said adieu, which is farewell in French, and the narrator of the story mentioned how that's not comforting at all. Like, nobody wants to hear farewell when they're sent off to the dungeons. So chapter 13 is Perfidy Unlimited. Together, the three mice traveled down, down, down. Remember, there are two hooded mice who are taking him. He's got a red thread around his neck and like a little like noose, and they're taking him to the dungeons where there's the rats, and the rats are going to eat him. Together, the three mice traveled down, down, down. The thread around Despero's neck was tight. He felt as if it was choking him. He tugged at it with one paw. "Don't touch the thread," barked the second hood. "Yeah," echoed the first hood. "Don't touch the thread." They moved quickly, and whenever Desperaux slowed, one of the two hoods poked him in the shoulder and told him to keep moving. They went through holes in the wall and down golden stairs. They went past rooms with doors that were closed and doors that were flung wide. The three mice traveled across the marble floors and under heavy velvet drapes. They moved through warm patches of sunlight and dark pools of shade. This, thought Desperaux, was the world he was leaving behind, the world that he knew and loved. And somewhere in it, the Princess P was laughing and smiling and clapping her hands to music, unaware of Despero's fate. That he would not be able to let the princess know what had become of him seemed suddenly unbearable to the mouse. "Would it be possible for me to have a last word with the princess?" Desperaux asked. "A word?" said the second hood. "You want a word with a human?" "I want to tell her what has happened to me." "Geez," said the first hood. He stopped and stamped a paw on the floor in frustration. "Cripes, you can't learn, can you?" The voice was terribly familiar to Desperaux. "Furlough?" he said. "What?" said the first hood irritably. Desperaux shuddered. I just got chills. His own brother was delivering him to the dungeon. His heart stopped beating and shrunk to a small, cold, disbelieving pebble. But then, just as quickly, it leapt alive again, beating with hope. "Furlough," Desperaux said, and he took one of his brother's paws in his own. "Please let me go. Please, I'm your brother." Furlough rolled his eyes. He took his paw out of Despero's. "No," he said. "No way." "Please," said Desperaux. "No," said Furlough. "Rules are rules." Reader, do you recall the word perfidy? As our story progresses, perfidy becomes an ever more appropriate word, doesn't it? Perfidy was certainly the word that was in Despero's mind as the mice finally approached the narrow, steep stairs that led to the black hole of the dungeon. Perfidy, if you didn't look it up, it does not go on to tell you here, means deceitfulness. It means, let me find, I had it open here. Deceitfulness, untrustworthiness. So think about it. Not only did Furlough turn in his only brother, well, I don't know if he's his only brother, but he's his baby brother. He turned him in. No one else saw him with the king and the princess, only Furlough, and he turned him in. He could have not said anything and nobody would have known, maybe. And now he's one of the two mice dragging his brother up the stairs, or down the stairs to the dungeon. So that is perfidy. That is deceitfulness, and that is untrustworthiness. That's a long word. It was a good word. Lots of suffixes in there, right? And a prefix. They stood, the three mice, two with hoods and one without, and contemplated the abyss before them. Abyss is like a big black hole. And then Furlough stood up on his hind legs and placed his right paw over his heart. "For the good "Of the castle mice," he announced to the darkness, "we deliver this day to the dungeon a mouse in need of punishment. He is, according to the laws we have established, wearing the red thread of death." "Red thread of death?" repeated Desperaux in a small voice. Wearing the red thread of death was a terrible phrase, but the mouse didn't have long to consider its implications because he was suddenly pushed from behind by the hooded mice. The push was a strong one, and it sent Desperaux flying down the stairs into the dungeon. As he tumbled, whisker over tail, through the darkness, there were only 2 words in his mind. One was perfidy, and the other word that he clung to was P. Perfidy, P. Perfidy, P. These were the words that pinwheeled through Desperoux's mind as his body descended into the darkness. Oh my god. We cannot stop there. That's like the saddest chapter ever. Here's his brother, Furlough, and the other mouse. He just looks so helpless. All he wanted to do was read. And fall in love with the princess. Chapter 14. Darkness. Desperaux lay on his back at the bottom of the steps and touched the bones in his body one by one. They were all there. And, amazingly, they were unbroken. He got to his feet and became aware of a terrible, foul, extremely insulting smell. The dungeon, reader, stank. It stank of despair and suffering and hopelessness, which is to say that the dungeon smelled of rats. So they're saying rats is synonymous with despair and suffering and hopelessness. And it was so dark. Desperaux had never before encountered darkness so awful, so all-encompassing. The darkness had a physical presence, as if it were a being all its own. The mouse held one small paw up in front of his whiskers. He could not see it, and he had the truly alarming thought that perhaps he, Desperaux Tilling, did not even exist. "Oh my," he said out loud. His voice echoed in the smelly darkness. "Perfidy," said Desperaux, just to hear his own voice again, just to assure himself that he did exist. "P," said Desperaux, and the name of his beloved was immediately swallowed up by the darkness. He shivered. He shook. He sneezed. His teeth chattered. He longed for his handkerchief. He grabbed hold of his tail. It took him a long, frightening moment to even locate his tail, so absolute was the darkness. To have something, anything to hold on to. He considered fainting. He deemed it the only reasonable response to the situation in which he found himself. But then he remembered the words of the Threadmaster. Honor, courtesy, devotion, and bravery. "I will be brave," thought Desperaux. "I will try to be brave like a knight in shining armor. I will be brave for the Princess P." How best for him to be brave? He cleared his throat. He let go of his tail. He stood up straighter. "Once upon a time," he said out loud to the darkness. He said these words because they were the best, the most powerful words that he knew, and just the saying of them comforted him. "Once upon a time," he said again, feeling a tiny bit braver, "there was a knight, and he wore always an armor of shining silver." "Once upon a time," boomed a voice from the darkness. "A knight in shining armor? What does a mouse know of such things?" That voice, the loudest voice that Desperaux had ever heard, could only, he assumed, belong to the world's largest rat. Desperoux's small, overworked heart stopped beating. And for the second time that day, the mouse fainted. He's so gentle. So that chapter 14 was called Darkness, and chapter 15 is called Light. So that gives me a little bit of hope. And then at the end of 15, we go on to the second book. So things change perspective for us. Chapter 15, Light. When Desperaux awoke, he was cupped in the large, calloused hand of a human, and he was staring into the fire of one match, and beyond the match there was a large, dark eye looking directly at him. "A mouse with red thread," boomed the voice. "Oh, yes, Gregory knows the way of mice and rats. Gregory knows. And Gregory has his own thread marking him. See here, mouse?" And the match was held to a candle, and the candle sputtered to life, and Desperaux saw that there was a rope tied around the man's ankle. Here is the difference between us. Gregory's rope saves him, and your thread will be the death of you. The man blew the candle out, and the darkness descended, and the man's hand closed more tightly around Desperaux, and Desperaux felt his beleaguered heart start up a crazy rhythm of fear. "Who are you?" he whispered. "The answer to that question, Mouse, is Gregory. You are talking to Gregory the jailer, who has been buried here, keeping watch over this dungeon for decades, for centuries, for eons, for eternities. You are talking to Gregory the jailer, who, in the richest of ironies, is nothing but a prisoner here himself." "Oh," said Desperaux. May I get down, Gregory?" Oh, goodness gracious, so many alarms here. Y'all can go away. It's story time. May I get down, Gregory?" "The mouse wants to know if Gregory the jailer will let him go. Listen to Gregory, Mouse. You do not want to be let go. Here, in this dungeon, you are in the treacherous dark heart of the world. And if Gregory was to release you, the twistings and turnings and dead ends and false doorways of this place would swallow you for all eternity." That does not sound fun. "Only Gregory and the rats can find their way through this maze. The rats because they know, because the way of it mirrors their own dark hearts. And Gregory because the rope is forever tied to his ankle to guide him back to the beginning. Gregory would let you go, but you would only beg him to take you up again. The rats are coming for you, you see." "They are?" "Listen," said Gregory. "You can hear the tails dragging through the muck and filth. You can hear them filing their nails and teeth. They are coming for you. They are coming to take you apart piece by piece." Desperaux listened, and he was quite certain that he heard the nails and teeth of the rats, the sound of sharp things being made sharper still. "They will strip all the fur from your flesh, and all the flesh from your bones. When they are done with you, there will be nothing left except red thread. Red thread and bones. Gregory has seen it many times, the tragic end of a mouse." "But I need to live," said Desperaux. "I can't die." "You cannot die. Ah, that is lovely. He says he cannot die." Gregory closed his hand more tightly around Desperaux. "And why would that be, Mouse? Why is it that you cannot die?" "Because I'm in love. I love somebody, and it is my duty to serve her." I need to find a Desperaux. Someone that can serve me. "Love," said Gregory. "Love. Hark you, I will show you the twisted results of love." Another match was struck. The candle was lit again, and Gregory held it up so that its flame illuminated a massive, towering, teetering pile of spoons and kettles and soup bowls. "Look on that, Mouse," said Gregory. "That is a monument to the foolishness of love." "What is it?" asked Desperaux. He stared at the great tower that reached up, up, up into the blackness. "What it looks like. Spoons, bowls, kettles, all of them gathered here as hard evidence of the pain of loving a living thing. The king loved the queen, and the queen died. This monstrosity, this junk heap is the result of love." "I don't understand," said Desperaux. "And you will not understand until you lose what you love. But enough about love," said Gregory. He blew out the candle. "We will talk instead about your life, and how Gregory will save it, if you so desire." "Why would you save me?" Desperaux asked. "Have you saved any other mice?" Ooh. Gregory is not cute. Spoiler alert. "Never," said Gregory. "Not one." "Why would you save me then?" "Because you, Mouse, can tell Gregory a story. Stories are light. Light is precious in a world so dark. Begin at the beginning. Tell Gregory a story. Make some light." And because Desperaux wanted very much to live, he said, "Once upon a time." "Yes," said Gregory happily. He raised his hand higher, and then higher still, until Despero's whiskers brushed against his leathery, time-worn ear. "Go on, Mouse," said Gregory. "Tell Gregory a story." And it was in this way that Desperaux became the only mouse sent to the dungeon whom the rats did not reduce to a pile of bones and a piece of red thread. It was in this way that Desperaux was saved. Reader, if you don't mind, that is where we will leave our small mouse for now, in the dark of the dungeon, in the hand of an old jailer, telling a story to save himself. It is time for us to turn our attention elsewhere. Time for us, reader, to speak of rats, and of one rat in particular. End of the first book. Here's Gregory saying, "Go on, Mouse. Tell Gregory a story." I think it's really creepy, and I love how the author does that she makes Gregory speak in third person. So he doesn't say, "Tell me a story." He says, "Tell Gregory a story." And that adds like a layer of creepy to it. There's Gregory. I told you he's not the cutest guy we've ever seen in our lives. And he's a poor old jailer who's down there with the rats and the mice in the dungeon, so he's of course going to be a little dirty. And look at little Desperaux telling him a story. Well, that, friends, is where Senorita Isley will leave you for tonight. Senorita Isley needs to go ride a bicycle, and she needs to also probably feed her cats before they try to eat her. So our second book is called Chiaroscuro. It's the name of the rat we're going to meet. I'm going to have to research how I pronounce that for when we start the book tomorrow. So like I said, I'm going to upload this video now as I go ride my bike in the beautiful sun. And hopefully Binks will get off the Women in Science book so that I can record a couple of amazing women for us that we can learn about. And I will see you guys tomorrow morning for our morning meeting. We'll do a quick one at 9 again. And then, oh no, I can't tomorrow. Oh, poop. I can't do a morning meeting tomorrow, but why don't we schedule like an after lunch meeting, like community circles? So we'll do it at 1 o'clock. I'll put it on Seesaw, and we'll talk then. Okay, bye guys.